All right, folks, how are we doing today? My name is Dr. Chris Menges, and I have Dr. Liz Bales here with me. And we are here to do a fantastic little discussion and seminar about behavior. Now, we've got a couple things to kind of clean up beforehand, and we'll roll into it from there. Now, as background, I mentioned, Dr. Chris Menges. I'm the Chief Veterinary Officer from Basepaws. As many of y'all know, we're a feline genetics company that is working to improve the knowledge about feline genetics and really about feline health overall. We do all of our testing by sequencing, so it allows us to have research grade data that we're able to learn more about our cats. Now with this discussion, this is a general education about seminar about feline behavior. This information is not to be used to make any clinical decisions about any specific cats, because cats can be affected by a variety of diseases and management of these can be complicated. So if you do have any very specific medical questions about case management, we'll have to recommend that you go to the treating veterinarian so that you can get the best recommended treatment from there. Dr. Liz Bales, she is a 2000 graduate of the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. She's gained a special interest in the unique behavioral and wellness needs of pets. Now, during her nearly 2-decade veterinary career, Dr. Bales has practiced in equine, small animal, and feline-only practices. She is a writer, a speaker, and a featured expert in all things pets around the globe, including appearances on Fox and Friends, ABC News, and Cheddar. So say hello, Dr. Bales, and everyone welcome Dr. Bales. We've got lots of chat rolling around.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today.
And we've also got some other folks helping us out. We've got some moderators. We've got Kristen, and she's helping us pull questions. Now, we will be doing a discussion seminar first and then doing live questions from the audience. So if you're on Zoom, go ahead and put those questions. There should be a button about questions in the bottom center of your little app, your user interface. And then if you're on Facebook, just go ahead and put them in the chat. And we'll get to those in kind of about the last half of what we're doing here today. But what are we doing here today? What are we doing here today, Dr. Bales? What are we doing here?
I'm so excited, actually. So what we're going to do is start with talking about the evolution of the feline species, the domestic cat, and how human beings and cats came to have this relationship. And then what's that like in our modern homes, and how can we do the very best we can for the cats that we love so much?
Great. Well, let's go ahead and kind of dive into that. Now, you mentioned the first thing we're going to start with is how our cats were domesticated. Now, where did our cats originally come from?
So there's a lot of research about this evolution, and I like to call it evolution more than domestication. So our modern house cat is descended from the African wildcat over about the past 10,000 years.
Okay, and now why did we choose this cat? How did this cat become the cat of all cats to be human companions?
So over time, these cats would spend more time around human beings because we would store food and grain as our hunter-gatherer farmer life started to evolve, and we would have food stores that would attract lots of rodents, and of course that's a threat to our food source. So but it's a great food source for cats. So the cats came around to eat, and the ones that were friendly became a bigger part of our life. And so we really co-evolved with cats more than anything else. They ate our pests, and we provided pests for them to eat, and we sort of got along hanging out together. And it's really very recently that cats came to live inside our homes and be the modern pet that they are today, which is really different from dogs. Really different from dogs.
Yeah, and so dogs were a bit more of kind of this functional job evolution domestication, right? That we kind of, dogs signed up for every job possible. They were happy to change their bodies to fill whatever role was needed. Whereas cats really really put their application in and made their own job description.
Yeah, so dogs and people are more similar. Dogs are pack animals, people are pack animals. We give a lot of the same signals to communicate, where there's more vocalization and muscles of facial expression to communicate. So kind of an easier fit to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were able to breed dogs very intentionally for specific jobs. So, you know, a Yorkie is really different than a Great Dane. And so that the domestication, you know, I've actually looked, every dictionary is a little bit different, but domestication is more the intentional breeding for a specific purpose. And that's really not what happened with the domestic cat. It was more of a co-evolution or taming. And even more so with taming, because right now, if you think about the cats in our environment, we have the cats who just can't get enough of us sitting on our lap all the time, or in my case, on my computer screen when I'm trying to work, or keyboard when I'm trying to work. And then we have the cats that are, you know, not really loving people so much. They're in and out. And then you have your completely untamed feral cats who won't get anywhere near a person. So cats are really not one thing.
Really not. Well, and you know, kind of as we started this, as you mentioned, they went and we kind of co-evolved, and that move to the indoor was a pretty recent move for the species in the large majority. But I think, you know, you sent me this fantastic little picture beforehand about how we can think about this. You know, this move, while it seems natural to us, as if we have friends, we pull them into our homes and our environments, how it might not be that kind of natural for our domestic cats from there. So this is a little picture that Dr. Bales originally. Oh my goodness!
So this is.
Am I sharing? What am I going with?
I saw for a second there.
Perfect. There we go. Now it's coming right on up. We
got it. This is one of my favorite ways to explain how we might think differently about our non-human housemates. So imagine that the world was taken over by giant robin redbreasts. Okay. Right. So they turned, their preferred habitat is a forest with trees. So they have very cleverly turned our concrete jungles back into forests with trees, so that they can live the way that they want to live. And they got rid of most of us humans because we're really just a nuisance. But a few of us they're keeping around as companions because they like us. And I got lucky enough to not be euthanized. And I got lucky enough to be chosen to live with this robin redbreast. Yeah. Which is really nice. And she thinks of me like I am her baby. I mean, this bird would do anything for me. But I'm living in her house, which happens to be this prickly, itchy nest that is 20 feet off the ground. I don't have any furniture. I don't have a bed. I don't have any friends. And I'm kind of freaking out. It's also really high up here, and that's not my thing. And to make matters worse, I don't have any of my normal stress relief. There is no Facebook up here. There is no chocolate up here. I don't really have any of the ways that I tend to cope with stress. And so I'm actually starting to get sick. Like I'm picking at my skin, I'm pulling at my hair, I'm getting like reflux, migraines. That stress is really having an impact on my actual health. And now to make matters worse, it's mealtime.
Oh my goodness, it's mealtime.
It's mealtime. And most of us know that the way robins feed their babies is to regurgitate food into their mouth. And nutritionally, this is probably better than what I eat on an average day. Chewed up worms and berries and the things that robins eat is probably healthier for me than my choices on a daily basis.
Mhm.
But the regurgitating of food into my mouth is not my preferred method. And do you know how many times a day a robin will feed her babies?
I do not. I do not. How many?
It can be over 100 times a day.
Wow. That sounds uncomfortable.
So you can imagine
Mhm.
the amount of stress I am now feeling from living this robin lifestyle, even though she's treating me like her baby. She would do anything for me. But if she really loved me, she would understand my species,
Mhm.
and to be happy and healthy, even if she's going to feed me her puked up uh, uh, food there, she would give it to me on the forest floor.
Mhm.
And we would work out a situation where I could have a table and chairs and a plate and utensils, and I could eat in the method that I'm used to eating. So I love this example because it really helps us to go through what our non-human companions are experiencing in our world.
Mhm.
And that even though our homes are safe and the temperature controlled and all those lovely things, and we love them so much, they're not necessarily designed for the species that we keep as roommates.
Right.
And then you take it a step further
Mhm.
in feeding, and how you feed a cat for the most part may even be more important than what you feed a cat.
Okay. Okay. So now we've kind of taken over this thought process of that we really need to actually start thinking like a cat. What do we really see cats and or how do cats see the world themselves? And so when we kind of think about it, like how evolutionarily would cats feed and kind of live?
So when we look at their prey,
Mhm.
cats are predators, as we know, and typically they hunt mice, small lizards, frogs, birds, that kind of thing. And most of their prey are not enough to share.
Okay.
So cats have evolved to be what we call solitary hunters.
Hmm.
They hunt alone and they eat alone, which I find really interesting when I ask people, do you know how many mice one cat would need to eat in one day just to live?
I don't. I'm going to have you answer that
And I
question.
didn't either. I didn't either. And I've been a feline vet
Yeah.
for 14 years before I learned, actually maybe 16 years before I learned this information.
Mhm.
Uh, one cat in one day needs to eat between 8 and 12 mice.
Oh, that is.
Right? A cat has 30 to 35 calories, and an unneutered cat living in the wild that is hunting for their food. So
Mhm.
they have this enormous prey drive to be able to stimulate them to want to catch all those mice, right? And there's not enough to share on a mouse. So they hunt alone, they eat alone, and they can live in social groups. Now, those social groups are mostly moms that are related to each other and their kittens.
Mhm.
Those moms might even nurse each other's kittens,
Oh, okay.
but they hunt alone and they eat alone. And the males usually live completely by themselves,
Mhm.
completely by themselves. So when we think about that, now I want to just talk a little bit about communication also,
Yeah.
because we know that these cats are incredible fighters, right? So if the cats fought each other, the amount of damage that they can do really quickly could, without medical care, as anybody who's had a lot of cats, somewhere along the way you've had a cat abscess from a cat fight, right? So fighting was a routine part of their life that is extremely dangerous. Uh,
Mhm.
there'd be a lot of dead cats. So cats have developed this incredible system to communicate with each other that keeps them safe. They're conflict avoiders. So they use where they scratch, where they mark, and communication that allows them to be far apart from each other to know that's your territory and you were here 2 days ago, and so I'm going to stay out of it because I can't afford a fight.
So not big traditional huggers, you say?
They're not huggers. They're not huggers. And they're also high frequency, low intensity interactors. And humans are exactly the opposite. Now we're going to talk for, who knows, half hour, hour plus today. So that would be high intensity. Mm-hmm. And then we may not talk for another couple weeks. So we're high intensity, low frequency interactors. Mm-hmm. Cats are more like, hey, and they want to have these brief interactions that are very frequent. Which is another opposite thing from the way we communicate. If you think about the way we communicate also, it's mostly through talking, and then a little bit through, I'm gonna read how your face is, like, can I get kind of the feeling that I've said enough? Are you liking what I'm saying? By reading your face and the tone of your voice. Cats almost don't vocalize at all with each other when things are going well, and they have almost no muscles of facial expression. So it's, in so many ways, exactly opposite.
Okay. And so do you think kind of this almost level of opposites also like attracts us as well in some ways as humans? It kind of is this extra layer of fascination in these fantastic little furry hunters we have.
For me, totally. Totally. And if, when I ask people, have you ever seen a mouse hunt in person to completion, like the whole thing? No, I haven't. And almost no one has, right? They're these incredible, solitary, secret hunters. And when we think about any cat that we're not feeding, that's living outside, if it's not being fed, is hunting, killing, catching, and eating 8 to 12 mice every single day, and no one sees it. Like, you got mad respect for that. That's incredible. It's incredible. So what we see is this adorable, furry, I mean, what is cuter than a cat? But we need to recognize that it's also this magnificent predator, and it has its own way of seeing the world. It has its own emotional needs, its own innate instincts and needs, that it's not a glorified stuffed animal. And to really, again, if you go back to my bird example, if we really, really love our cats, we need to understand their needs, because they don't have an effective way of communicating to us. So we need to understand their needs and provide for those needs before they get so distressed that they start acting out on our environment. Because what we find is cats behave in ways that humans can't live with. For them, it's a normal way of showing their stress or their communication. And for us, it's like, they are so spiteful. If you pee on my pillow one more time, and then that one more time happens, and off to the shelter they go. And I learned in 2014 that the #1 cause of death for cats is euthanasia.
Oh, that is just heartbreaking.
And the #1 cause of euthanasia is a behavior problem that gets you sent back to the shelter. And everyone thinks that's not going to be me. I would never do that. And everyone out there that's judging right now, I would never send my cat to the shelter. Really? What if your significant other said, if that cat pees on my bed one more time, or it's shredding the rental property that you have, and now we can't, I mean, this is really a problem. It's really a problem. And so, my life's work now is trying to get people to understand basics of cat behavior, how to meet the cat's needs in the house, so that they don't become destructive, and we break that human-animal bond, and that cat goes back to the shelter. So we're trying to get in front of it.
Well, we are. We're working as well. You know, we're happy to have you here, and we love all of this information. Now we've talked about how these cats are these majestic hunters in the wild, and majestic secret hunters, almost like little tiny hunter assassins, furry hunter assassins. And so when we bring them into a fully indoor environment, what are some ways that we can really help this outlet? Because they do need that outlet. I mean, they do have all that majestic energy still running around in there, but
Yeah.
what are some ways that we can really get them some good outlets for?
So the great news is that there's been researchers working on figuring this out for a long time. This is not my research. This is just my passion to explain the research of many, many amazing veterinarians and veterinary behaviorists who have come before me. But they've broken it down into some categories. So when we talk about a cat, not only are they that amazing predator, they're also prey. So they're in their environment trying to hunt, but also not be killed all the time. So to feel safe, they need places to climb, because the higher up they are, the more they can survey their environment, and that makes them feel safe. Even if you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, my cat loves to be on the back of the sofa. Think about your room, that's probably the highest point in that room that they can get to rest.
Okay.
I love that people really get upset when the cats are on the countertops. And I will ask you, what is the highest point that your cat can safely get to in your kitchen? It's probably the countertop. So if you want the cat to not be on your countertop, give them a better alternative. Let's work with their instincts instead of against it.
Absolutely.
The Christmas tree.
Or, access to a higher ledge, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the Christmas tree. I mean, you just brought the best cat tree into your house and put all these, cats are very reactive to light and movement. And you just gave it a carnival, and then you want it not to go to the carnival. So when you understand cat behavior, all this stuff starts to fall into place. So places to climb, very important. And give your cat a safe place to climb that you want it to go, to keep it off the things you don't want it to be on. Places to hide. It's super normal and natural for cats to want to rest in nooks and crannies to feel safe. And really interesting thing is, the more we make our cats feel safe in their, and give them all these opportunities in their, all day, every day, the less they need them. It's really interesting. Like, do you ever have that one friend that you're totally relaxed around, and you do more things that are outside your comfort zone because they make you feel so good? Cats are really the same way. Okay. So give them the places to climb, places to hide, ways to scratch. Scratching is super important for cats. Not only do they need to shed their nails, they also use that as a stretch. They really want to stretch all the way out. And some cats want to scratch this way, some cats want to scratch this way. And most of our scratching posts are too small and too wobbly for them to do what they want to do. Almost all of them, and now I understand this from a retail perspective, we have these teeny little stupid scratching posts because we can ship them easily and put them on the store shelves easily. And when you understand the competing interests, retail ease wins out over cats' needs all the time. So
listing a lot of very human requirements for getting the cat tree places, but not cat requirements.
Exactly. And cats also communicate messages with scratching. Not only can you see that I was here, but I can leave pheromone markers that I was here. So scratching is another. I mean, we could talk about each one of these behaviors all day, but I'm going to get through them really quick. Places to scratch. The appropriate litter box situation, and that is a giant topic. Maybe I should come back and we should just do that. And then ways to hunt. Ways to hunt. Those are the big ones.
Well, and so for kind of, we'll kind of pop in these last two for a little bit here, and that'll probably kind of round us out for a little bit as we move towards questions on there. And the appropriate litter box scenario can be a very complicated situation. It's right. And so what are kind of like what you consider kind of the main tenets of a good litter box?
Yeah. So I always go back to the behavior. So what does a cat want and need in their, we have these like doctor words that I still haven't worked up, how to not doctor word them. And this is one, toileting behavior is what we call it. But if you think about when you are going to the bathroom, you're urinating or defecating, you are incredibly vulnerable. That is the time when, if you think about it, like think about human behavior. Most people do not want anyone else in the room. You want a clean room. If you start to think about it, going to the bathroom being a private and vulnerable time, then you're like, oh, that starts to make a lot of sense. Now imagine that I need to worry about someone killing me all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now let's worry about, I am also concerned about my territory all the time, which is one thing we haven't really talked about yet, is territory. So when we bring a cat, let me circle back around, sorry. Also to smell and messages. So one of the main ways we talked about this a little bit earlier about communication. Urine smells and fecal smells have both the odor that we appreciate with our nose, but they also have pheromones in them, which is an odorless chemical messenger. So when I leave urine or feces, it also is leaving a lot of information about me to other cats. So we think about most cats actually cover their excrement in the litter box because I want it to leave information when I want to give it. It's sort of like, if you could imagine, I want to send you an email. I don't want you reading my every thought.
They're just making a draft. They're just making a draft, right?
Yeah. So litter boxes are a lot to think about. When you think about all those things, first of all, clean. For the love of God, clean. So would you rather go to the bathroom in a truck stop gas station bathroom that has never been cleaned, has no toilet paper, and there have been 35 truckers in there before you?
I'm pretty much just going to choose option 2 at this point in time.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
So if you don't have a better option than a clean litter box, you're going to find your own spot that's outside of the litter box. Right? So then we talk about so it needs to be clean.
Yeah.
Baseline needs to be clean. Let's talk about size. I'm not the most petite lady in the world. Any of you who've met me, we can talk about that later. I'm working on it. But the cats need to be able to move around in their litter box. So you go back to our gas station bathroom, like a bathroom stall that's tiny. You feel icky. You don't want to touch things. Human beings don't want. We wish cats would never have to use the bathroom. That would be great for us. And if anything, we want them to have the tiniest little postage stamp of a litter box. I always laugh, even if you guys at home can go on Google Images right now and put in cat litter box, and you'll see that they're all tiny. So you have this cat that is most of the litter box. Everything about that is wrong. So a cat needs a litter box that is 1.5 times the size of the cat, from the tip of the nose to the base of the tail. That's huge. And go try to find it in retail for all the reasons we talked about before. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. It's just too big to ship.
Yep.
But people have gone from there. So we really need to be able to increase that size of the bathroom.
So we're clean.
Yeah.
We're huge. And a really cool study came out a few years ago where the researchers wanted to find out what cats didn't like about the litter box. So they put fake poop in there that had no smell. And then in a different scenario, they put in odor without the physical material. And it was actually the physical material, not the odor, that cats disliked the most. And I found that super interesting. So just the fact that there's too much stuff in your litter box could make your cat not use it. So clean, big. And another thing about big that I think about is if you didn't get to it yet and I need to go into it again, I can find another spot that's away from the physical stuff that I don't want to be near. Yeah. So big enough, clean enough. Where is it? That's a huge one. So I want to go, if I'm a cat, I want to go to the litter box somewhere that's easy to find. That if I have arthritis, which a lot of people don't appreciate, that their cats have physical pain, they're terrible at showing their pain. Can I get in it? Can I get out of it? So low-sided, in a place that if you have a litter box in your closet on the 3rd floor or in your basement, and you have a cat that might have some physical problems, you can't always get there.
Yeah.
And you might even have a cat where they go right outside the litter box. You might have trouble getting in or out of it. Right?
Yeah.
So there's so much more to talk about with, because it's the kind of litter that your cat wants to use. Is your cat declawed? A lot of declawed cats have pain in their toes. And when they're walking on certain kinds of litter, that hurts more than others. And then the number of litter boxes. The rule of thumb is one more than the number of cats that you have, but in separate locations of the house. So people have 2 cats and they're like, they're doing an A+ job because they have 3 litter boxes all lined up together in the basement. To a cat, that's 1 litter box, and I might not even be able to get there. So different locations of the house, one more than the number of cats, big, clean litter box. And the other one I'm going to talk about really quick is, in a multi-cat household, is escape.
Okay.
So cats are conflict avoiders. We talked about that. I don't want, if I get hurt, I'm probably going to die. So I will do everything I can to not fight with you. But you might want to fight with me. And the best time for you to fight with me and me not be able to hurt you back is when I'm in the litter box.
Absolutely.
So you might be, very often we'll have the housemate lying in wait for the cat to come out of the litter box and be terrorized. So you want to think about safe escape routes and more than one escape route from the litter box for the cat to be able to be safe. So we can go into lots of, we really should. We should have a whole nother cat day. It's a big topic. It's a big topic.
It's huge. And like I mentioned, we got some really good tenants on here, though, just kind of as a really good base education for litter boxes, you know, huge litter boxes, clean litter boxes, more than, as we say, N+1 is our basic rule, number of cats +1. And then, of course, as you mentioned, routes of escape, you know, at least to kind of, so that they're not, when they go in, they don't have to come basically out through a bottleneck, kind of at least 1 to 2, or, you know, 2 ways out, so that if they come out and start to sense that conflict, be able to really go, hey, you know, I've got something to do over here, guys. We'll talk about this later, and be able to quietly sashay away from that conflict a little bit.
And again, cat pain is something that is getting a lot of conversation now in veterinary medicine. I'm so happy to hear it. But we have a species that it is very dangerous for them to show physical pain. You know, a lot of us don't even know that our cats are sick until they're really, really, really sick. Same thing with pain. We don't know they're in pain until they're in a whole lot of pain. So we want to make sure that our litter boxes have an entrance that they can get in and out of easily, and that they're in a location that they can get to easily. So if your cat is over 5 or 6 years old, arthritis has to be on your list, even if you've never seen them limp.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, yeah, that kind of rounds out our great litter box discussion on there. We do have a next big, huge thing that we really do want to talk about, you know, that behavior, and that behavior of feeding. We mentioned on that a little earlier. We talked about mice, 8 to 12 mice per day on there. But how do we think about that in terms of an indoor environment? How do we get mice? We of course don't want to release 8 to 12 mice in our house every day.
So I'm kind of obsessed with this. I'm obsessed with this. So cats actually spend 80% of their waking hours in nature hunting for food. Okay. So when I started,
share this little graph as well that you sent me as well right beforehand, just to help folks have a good sense of what we're looking at here.
Yeah. So when I started thinking about how I could really help cats, you know, places to climb, places to hide, litter box, what could I do that wasn't being done that could make the biggest impact on cats' lives? So if you look at this graph, if 80% of the time a cat is awake, they're hunting, and we take that away from them, it is going to have major consequences. So for a cat, hunting is not just getting a meal. For me, I just want my bowl of ice cream, and I don't even want to have to go to the supermarket. If someone would deliver it to me on the sofa, that would be perfect. But for a cat, they're actually contra freeloaders. They would rather work for their food than be given it. And this is something we call the seeking circuit that you're looking at here. So they want to hunt, they want to seek around and find their food, then catch it and play with it. and then eat a tiny portion of food, and then either go hunting again or groom and sleep, and around and around and around. So one of my favorite cat facts is at the bottom of this graphic, that a cat's stomach is only the size of a ping pong ball. Now, you being a veterinarian have had the opportunity to do surgery and dissect cats, so you know that is a really small organ.
That is, it's extremely small. We don't, think about, I mean, if you don't have a ping pong ball around, I mean, think about the size of a tennis ball. It's roughly quarter of that, half, a third of that, even tinier than that.
And it translates to about a tablespoon and a half of food.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a meal for a cat many times a day. If you take the total daily requirements of a cat outside is more like, and unneutered is more like 300, 350, inside somewhere between 200 and 250 calories, but not all at once, and not twice a day, and not in a bowl. So hunt, catch, play, eat, groom, sleep many, many times a day. And the other thing to know is that cats are what we call crepuscular hunters. I love my $1 million words. But what that means is they hunt at dawn and dusk, and they hunt when their prey is out. So for us, the way that plays out is at night, at dusk, they get the zoomies, people say. They go, darting around the house. That's fine, because we're eating dinner too, or watching TV, or doing our thing. But when they do it at 4 or 5 in the morning, not so cool.
That classic 3-4 a.m. wake up call. That 3-4.
And for people whose cats wake them up to be fed at that hour, I love to ask, is there often food in the bowl? And often they say, yes, there is food in the bowl. And the answer is they don't just want to eat. They want to hunt, catch, play, eat. And so they're able to do that behavior by waking you up. I got my hunt, catch, play. Now let's go eat.
So they hunted their meal through us. They hunted
their meal through you. Yep.
Okay, so cats are much more devious and manipulating.
No. They're just acting. Actually, they're brilliant, right? They're brilliant. They were able to figure out in this barren environment to a cat, imagine back to my bird's nest, this completely barren environment for them. And they were able to craft a way to fulfill their instinct, even though you did nothing to help them with that. So I think they're brilliant. Not manipulative, no.
Well, they're filling their needs. They're working to fill their needs, which is fantastic. And that means that in our world, that means they're giving us signals that we can learn from.
Yes.
Great way that I think sometimes we look at behavior and look at it as problems instead of looking at it as kind of levels of communication that they really do want to improve their bond with you.
Exactly.
And so we've got, like I say, and one of the Dr. Bales is very obsessed with this. She has a fantastic little product on the market right now that helps with kind of hunting. And you want to walk us through kind of how hunting feeding works?
Yeah, so I learned all of this stuff sort of in bits and pieces, starting back in vet school in 1996. I was told by our behaviorist, Dr. Karen Overall, who's one of the most famous veterinary behaviorists in the world, that cats should be hunting for their food, not eating from a bowl. And we would all okay, and then go home and feed our cats from bowls. It's just what we all did. And then I would go to continuing education lectures over the years, and we would hear the same thing. We'd all nod, and then we'd all go home and feed our cats from bowls. And in 2014, I was at a lecture by Dr. Margie Sherrick, who, for our cat people out there, she is a hero of cat internal medicine and behavior. And it's 3 days, and almost every single thing that we talked about had something to do with cats and feeding, from obesity, arthritis, urinary disease, skin disease. It circled back over and over. So it's really in my mind. And then she said, at the end of 3 days of cat lectures, with a room full of about 150 veterinarians who cared enough to go to 3 days of cat lectures, do you guys know the #1 cause of death for cats? And I didn't, and neither did anybody else in that room.
Mhm.
And she said the number one cause of death for cats is euthanasia. And the number one cause of euthanasia are behavior problems that get you sent to a shelter where there's no room for you. And ultimately you're put to sleep, not because those shelter workers don't love you, but there's just no room, no food.
Yeah.
And my life changed forever in that moment, because I thought, how as a profession are we not treating the number one cause of death for our patients? And we're just sharing this knowledge with each other and nothing ever happens. I've been hearing for almost 20 years, cats shouldn't be eating from bowls, and then no one's changing it. And so we walked out to the lobby and I said to my friends, like, what are you guys going to do different? Because to me, that is a huge piece of information, and we got to do something.
Yeah.
And they said, like, well, what are we going to do?
Looks like we did something here. We did something.
Yeah. So on the ride home, I thought, how can I develop something that would meet those needs to hunt, actually seek around the house, catch and then play with multiple small meals a day, using the food that we're already feeding our cats. And how can I do that also with my cat knowledge of what cats don't like? A lot of cats are afraid of certain movements, smells, noises. So, what I created can look like a little stuffed animal, but it actually has more than 20 years of my own veterinary science and about 40 years of other people's veterinary science in a couple of little mice. So I designed the hunting feeder. And by the time I got home, I was driving about a couple hours. I ran to the computer and pulled out a piece of paper, told my kids not to talk to me. And I drew this.
Fantastic. And these are the hunting feeder from Doc and Phoebe. And they help really there, as Dr. Bales, as you mentioned, they're able to be filled with kibble, with food to really help stimulate that hunting, that hunt, catch, play, eat, groom, sleep cycle. That really helps our cats drive indoors. Really.
In that tiny portion. And what is so interesting, that sort of the godfather of feline veterinary research is a guy by the name of Tony Buffington.
Mm-hmm.
He created the indoor cat initiative, which is Ohio State University. You guys, anybody who is watching can go on the web and read for days about all of his work. He's amazing. And the conclusion of his research from the mid-'80s until now is that how you feed a cat is in fact more important than what you feed them, as it pertains to urinary disease and everything else. Once a cat has a urinary issue, more wet food can help them. But dry versus wet versus raw does actually not cause the disease. Okay. In most cases, what causes the disease is the stress of a household that is not meeting those innate needs that we just talked about.
Yeah, and this is a great way to kind of help bring down one of those levels as we try and really help introduce our cats into our environment, but still make it enriching for them. And so it's not so much a human-centric environment, but it's a human and a cat-centric environment where we can really meet in the middle between those different communication styles and lifestyles that we've talked about today.
And I thought I was going to have great news today and tell you that the wet feeder that I've been working on for 6 years was going to be available, but then we had a global health crisis and is not available right now. But as soon as the goods around the world get flowing again, you'll be able to find the wet feeder in your stores.
Okay, great. Well, now we've been chatting for a little bit now, and I know we talked beforehand about potentially extending our questions because it's so interesting. We've got so much to talk about, but I think we should roll into questions now. We have just been cruising along, and so we've got a lot of great questions that we've been building up on here just to begin. And so we'll start, with really kind of an interesting question that we don't talk about a lot. We've talked a lot about bringing cats indoors, but from Yadira on Zoom, is it safe for cats to be outdoors as part of their daily routine?
This is a great question.
Mm-hmm.
The data that I'm aware of is the average lifespan of an outdoor cat is about 5 years, and the average lifespan of an indoor cat is about 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's a very complicated question, because an outdoor cat is getting their needs met by all those things that we talked about, and indoor cats are not getting their needs met unless we're meeting them for them. So I have to say, I think about this question quite a bit. I have a cat that does not go outside. But I spend obviously a lot of my time making sure that our indoor environment is enriched. But I actually write, I write a lot for different publications, and I call it indoorosis or indooritis. There's a big list of diseases that indoor cats get that outdoor cats don't, for these reasons. So I wish I could give you a straightforward answer on that one, but I can't. But I will say this: every time I start thinking, you know what, maybe I should let my cats out, then I will get a hit by car situation that I'd have to deal with, or some other terrible catastrophic thing that happens outside. They're just exposed, not only cars, unfortunately, human beings can be terrible outside. Cats get shot, cats get lit on fire, cats get poisoned. Then they fight with each other. They can be prey to foxes, hawks. It's just a dangerous world out there, but I think it's a very complicated question, and I don't have an answer.
Well, I thought I'd start you off with a nice and vague one on there. You know, it's certainly that if it's part of their daily routine, you know, I've always been on the fence, particularly controlled outdoor experiences, so that we do control for some of those variables are great for cats. But there is, you know, a lot of different ways that people do those, but still, those are needs that you have to think about, needs to be met for the cat, because you are still controlling that situation for them, and then it's not kind of a fully outside sense. Now, for kind of some you know, off the wall, a lot of like behavior questions we get. And here's also another fun one. We hear a lot about cats that may just be staring at a specific spot. So Kevin asks about his cat Benny, who likes to stare at a specific spot in the ceiling every now and then, and meow. And do you have any ideas? I know the behavior, of course, can be so complicated on there, but do you have any inklings or behaviors about thoughts about that, if that could be expressing anything?
Yeah, so I think that the list of maybes can be pretty long there. One thing I would think about, you never want to presume that this is behavioral and not medical. And I think that we need to make that clear, that every now and then, or more than that, a lot of these things can have a medical component. So I want to make sure I could ask some questions about what that looks like, or see a video, and make sure that it's not something like a focal seizure or another neurologic problem. But if we ruled out the medical, then I would start thinking about cats' senses. So cats hear noises that human beings do not, and they hear at very, very low frequencies and at very, very high frequencies that our ears can't appreciate. And I would wonder if there's something mechanical or electronic in that location that cat hears that you can't, that might be intermittent. Is it possible that there's a smell, that there's a rodent or some other creature that is up there that our senses can't appreciate? Those would be the top two that I would be thinking about.
Okay, so we like to think about how really cats experience this environment. Kind of goes back to thinking like a cat, how a cat thinks. It's that sound and those smells that really would potentially attract, and what may, you know, we think about our senses as a term of being good, but then cats are, of course, magnitudes better than ours in what they can sense and feel. And so we always have to kind of think 2 layers deep within the wall, 3, 4 layers deep within, see if there's something that may be going from there. Oh my goodness, we have so many questions. We have so many great questions. And people, I'm so sorry. We're not going to answer all of them, and I'm going to I'm picking some out. And if we don't get to yours, I'm sorry. We'll probably pick up some of these topics and try and write a blog maybe with you, if you would like to do that. We've got
I never
So
get tired of it. I joke, I haven't slept in 6 years. This is
great, fantastic. We will happily work with that. Happily work with that. So here's one that we always also get kind of lots of questions about. So we commonly have cats that love to be pet, that come up asking for interaction, get a little bit of interaction, and then turn around and nip after just a touch of interaction. And is there anything behind that we can kind of think about from an evolutionary standpoint?
Yes. And I'm still learning about a lot of this too, being a cat parent, as well as being a veterinarian, as well as studying behavior. So we talked before about how cats are high frequency, low intensity interactors. So number one, they would like a stroke, stroke, stop, not continued stroking, that your cat becomes what we call overstimulated. So it's too much for them. And the signs that they're giving you that it's too much for them are really subtle and might not be something you can appreciate. Their muscles might stiffen. That's my favorite thing to notice with animals. It can be hard with fluff, and so you can't see it, but when you feel them, you can feel that they might be stiffening. The hairs might be standing up a little bit, but more so the stiffening. And then you want to stop. Don't wait for, like, a dog would give you more signals usually, or a person would say like, enough. But a cat, we either don't perceive or misread the signals until it's The other thing to know about cats is the areas on their body that they like to be touched are really different than people and really different for dogs. The cat's favorite place to be touched is actually on their face.
Really?
And they have the sense of smell and pheromones for cats is something I'm still learning about and I'm fascinated by. And they have pheromone glands on their cheeks, right under their ears, under their throat. And so that's where they want to be touched. So even if you just put your hand out, they're going to touch you, and then they'll stop when they're done. Whereas if I just walked over to you and started stroking your face, you'd be like, okay. That's kind of what they're feeling when we go stroke them all up and down their back. They're like, that's not what we do here, you know? Another thing about this that I love is the belly. So if a dog rolls over and shows you their belly, human nature is like, oh, they want to be pet. So we think the same thing for cats. And it's actually really not true. So we are misreading that signal in a way that is causing trouble. So if your cat loves you and chooses this signal, one thing that they're going to do is do that roll and kind of really cute on their back and show you their belly. That roll is to communicate to you, I really like you, I trust you, and you're my person. That roll is not pet my belly.
Okay. So they're saying I love you. They're saying I love you. And
absolutely, you're my person. But when we pet their belly, now every cat's going to be a little bit different. There's going to be someone out there that's like, my cat loves it, and maybe they do. But for the majority of cats, when we then, oh, you love me, I'll pet your belly, we've just violated their trust.
Okay.
Because to a cat, the belly is super vulnerable, and they do not, in general, like to be touched there. And it almost is reflexive that they'll then grab you and attack you. In fact, if you want to play attack with your cat, their belly, and you'll get it.
And then that's a big way from little play. They might be a little, like amped up with that play, but they'll have.
And you know what? I want to take this opportunity, because we talked about hyperstimulating them, to you didn't ask the question that I'm going to answer.
That's stress, right?
Play. So we play with cats, with wand toys, with all kinds of things, and I'll answer specific questions about that to the best of my ability. But one thing that no one ever told me that is so important, if we think about that cartoon that you showed that I have of hunt, catch, play, eat, groom, sleep. Okay. When we do that hunt, catch, play, cats are this is one of my favorite turns of phrase in behavioral medicine. They're in a heightened state of arousal.
Oh.
Ooh. So when we are playing with a cat, we're getting them into super hunter mode,
Mhm.
and we are getting them energized in this heightened state of arousal. So if we just stop, then they're still like this, and they're more likely to go have have a behavior problem that you don't like. They're going to then attack you 10 minutes later, or go shred something that you don't want them to shred. So when you're done playing, so you've done that hunt play stuff, let them catch their prey. So if you've got a laser, you can actually focus the laser on a toy that they can grab at the physical thing and stop. If you're playing with a wand toy, let them catch the feathers or whatever is on the end of the wand toy, and let them have a few minutes with it, and give them a food treat, so that you've done this hunt, catch, play, eat completion for them, and their central nervous system is like, oh, we're done now, and I can be chill. You don't leave them like this. You leave them like this.
Yeah, and help them get all the way down. That's fantastic. That's a great way to think about that. And really, and it's something that we don't think about and talk about. We talk a lot about playing and exercising our cats, particularly as we, are having an increase in cat obesity. And so we're putting a lot of stress on exercise, but fully completing that cycle in there is something that isn't as common, that's commonly talked about in the veterinary medicine world right now. It's something that we do really need to focus on to, help our cats fully live in our environments and fully enjoy.
And if we just circle back to obesity, that's another thing that I want to come and talk for a whole hour about. It's a huge problem, and it's not getting better every year. It's getting worse every year, regardless of what we're feeding our cats. The how we feed, food obsession, and stress has so much to do with this. So we'll put a pause on that because it's too big for me to cram small.
That is a huge topic. We've done one with Dr. Ernie Ward, and we will certainly do more because there's just too much to talk about with obesity.
Yes. But I'd like to say, I think obesity is a problem of behavior, both human behavior and pet behavior. It is not a problem of food.
I believe so. I agree with that. We'll have to work and educate on how we change our environments for ourselves and for our cats. And that's one of the things that we kind of do with your product as well, is really help change how we do that feeding and how we really access that. Now, God, so many questions. Now we've got another question with Jesse on Zoom. Why does my cat lick my hair sometimes?
That is a great question. And I'm not exactly sure. One thing that I love to do is tell you what I don't know. And I'm not sure that I know an answer. I could point to a study for this. My guess is that it's a grooming behavior. So cats that have their chosen few, we have like these great words for that. Preferred affiliates is the doctor word for that. But if we have our very best friends that we feel the most comfortable around, you guys who have a bonded pair of cats know this at home. They groom each other. It's called allo grooming. They groom each other. So your cat might be grooming you because she says you're my bestie. And that's how she's showing it, is by grooming you. I'm gonna guess that that's the answer. And I really hope when I get to my next life that my definition of heaven is I get all these answers and the cats are like, no, not it, which is fine. Or like, you got it. But I can't wait till we have more ways to actually communicate and find out the answers to this one. But that would be my guess.
Okay. Great, thank you. Now we're gonna hop over to Facebook for our next question, and it's just from G, but the letter G. Now it talks about how we've got a couple cats, and it looks like one of the cats won't let another into a bedroom or a kitchen, and we didn't really talk about territory within the indoor environment between kind of two cats, and is this something that becomes reflective of that?
Yes. So the multi-cat environment is so interesting. So when cats are outside, they use space to get along. So we have our group that will live together, and it's often dependent upon how much safe shelter we can find and how much food we can find of how many people get to be in our group. But the cats that are not in our group, they better stay away. They better stay away. And so distance is what they use to get along. Mm-hmm. Inside, we decide who's going to live in our house, how many are going to live in our house, and it's a fixed space. And so they can't make their choices about staying away from each other. And then you add to that resources. So then we will put the food in most houses that have lots of cats. There's usually only one feeding station, and one water station. The water and food are usually next to each other, which is wrong. We can talk about that later. So multiple and separated resources are one of the first steps to fixing this problem. But when we also have our litter boxes usually in one spot, and confined areas of transit. Ooh, that was big words. Hallways, hallways and doorways cause the most problems. So I can't use staying away from you to get along. Mm-hmm. And my food's in there. Yeah. And you hate me. You've decided that this is your spot. And one of the ways, when we think about behavior, one of the ways we were taught about it growing up is with dominance, which really behaviorists, and I'm not a board certified behaviorist, so I wouldn't be the first one to say that. I'm a veterinarian who is obsessed with behavior, but I'm not board certified. But one of the things that they talk about a lot is really thinking about this differently, not dominance. But the cat that's in charge in that situation will block access to the resources. So what that means is all I have to do is sit here in this doorway and you're not getting the food. Yeah. Or guess what? You don't get to pee today. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't even have to look at you. I don't even have to look at you. And in fact, often I don't. My back is just to you and I'm sitting here in this doorway and that means you're not getting food. And what is so cool, I loved learning about cats because when you're learning for the first time, let's talk about this particular situation. Okay, now I'm the controlling one to the resources and you're the one trying to get the resources. Eventually you freak out and you pee or poop somewhere else or you attack me. Mm-hmm. And what the human in that situation says is, attacker, pee or pooper, you're the bad one. You're the one that we have the problem with here. But when you learn about cat behavior, what we often do is ask people to take videos of it. Mm-hmm. And when you watch cat behavior with someone who's been trained on it and not trained on it, the cat will go and walk and sit in the doorway and turn their back to the other cat. And we're like, ooh, that was bad. And that's when people are like, what are you talking about? And they see the attack part and they think that's the aggression. But the aggression was actually the blocking of the resources. So that's a big way to say that hallways and doorways become a big problem. So for whoever asked the question, I want you to understand that one way you can help this is to put the resources, food, water, litter box, places to climb, places to hide in many locations of the house so that the cat who is getting blocked has other places to go to get what they need, number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, we forget that cats like to climb. Let's use vertical resources to increase the space. We're not gonna put an addition on the house, unlikely. We're not gonna blow out this wall to get more space in this passageway. But what we can do is use vertical space. So think about if it's possible to add cat shelves to that particular location. You can actually find some that go on the door itself or install them around in the hallways where you are having problems. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Those are some great pieces of advice on there to really help us understand that we need, with a lot of times with multi-cat households, we need multiple resource sets from eating, drinking, sleeping, peeing, pooping, and these sorts of things to really allow for that social structure within the cats to find a good, peaceful conflict avoidance that they really do want to be able to meet on there.
And I want to just pause on that for 1 second, because the bowl is usually where a lot of this trouble happens. So number one, each cat is a hunter and they're not getting their needs met by eating from a bowl. And number two, the bowl is pressed right up against the wall. So as a predator and a prey species, I have to eat now and I can't survey my environment. And we all have to share this. Everything about it is wrong. So when you use what I developed, hunt, catch, play, eat, groom, sleep in multiple locations of the house, you get to hunt over here, I get to hunt over there, we get to use that space to get along the way nature intended. A lot of people say, what do you do in the multi-cat household? I'm like, this is what you do in the multi-cat household to decrease stress. Get rid of that bowl and let them hunt in multiple locations of the house.
Yeah, and that really open up that space, open up that verticality, and really let them start to see the space in different ways. They'll see lines through that we don't. We walk on the floor, but they'll see those fantastic little open kind of openings as it comes out from there. And then let's see. Oh my goodness. We have just, oh my goodness, we've got such great responses and such great, thank you everyone for being here today with all of this interest. And of course, Dr. Bales, we've got a couple more questions that we're going to go through today. One of our questions is from Kirsten McDonald. It's on Facebook. And she asks about, are there any tips for helping a semi-feral cat or a cat that's been adopted that was originally feral, become more used to kind of that human interaction, particularly around nails from, if any need from trims or if they need to be trimmed or anything like that.
I'm not sure I got part one of the question. I don't know I got part two.
Sorry about that. I know it's a big question on there. She's got a very nice 26-toed polydactyl cat.
Oh, cool.
Lots of toes, but lots of toes, and sometimes not all those get used on the scratching post.
Yeah.
Able to just really get used to how that interaction, that feet interaction, which can be tough.
This is a tough nut to crack, a really tough nut to crack. Cats inherit their ability to be socialized a little bit from their parents, number one. Number two, their key time to be socialized to humans is really between 2 and 7 weeks, 2 and 9 weeks. And if we miss that window of socialization, we may never be able to get it done. So people who try to tame feral cats need to appreciate just how hard that is. And it may never happen. So you got to give yourself a break there. It's a big question. So what I would say is food. Positive reinforcement over and over and over. So if she can find a food that this cat thinks is the best thing in the entire world, you could try whipped cream. You can try wet cat food, deli meat, meat-flavored baby food in teeny little amounts. And number one, you want to be able to give it and let the cat come near you. Then give it, and this is probably going to, I'm saying this quickly, but this is going to take weeks, months, years, never. First, let it come near you and eat from your hand. Then let it come near you when it really, really trusts you. And I wouldn't even reach out to touch it. I would let it touch me. And then the next thing is to let you touch it. Then the next thing is to just touch the foot while they're eating and getting all this positive reinforcement, and ultimately get yourself to nail trimming. But that could take years. In the event that those nails really need to get trimmed, because a lot of you guys know this, that nail is curved and it can grow around and be digging into the paw and actually cause infection, and it's terrible and painful. In certain cases, drugs are your friend. So I might find a veterinarian that is very aware of cat behavior, and see if you couldn't get some sedation like gabapentin that you give in a pretty whopping dose and let that cat get good and sleepy. Carrier train the cat so that getting it to a vet wouldn't be the worst thing in the entire world. And then when it gets to the vet, see if it needs more sedation to safely trim its nails. You might have to work on both simultaneously to keep that cat happy. That's a tough spot to be in.
It is. It's a tough spot. It is a tough spot. But thank you for walking through that. The positive reinforcement. Sometimes the people do say cats can't be trained, but they really are smart individuals, and they really will respond to kind of that good, loving, positive reinforcement.
I'm almost to the point where I say humans can't be trained, because every animal, you know, people who work in zoos have used positive reinforcement to get a tiger or a lion or a rhinoceros to put their leg out and allow blood to be drawn with no sedation and no restraint through patient, slow, positive reinforcement. So every animal can be taught if we understand what they need, what their instincts are, what food they want, and we do it on their terms. The animals are the ones who can be taught. The humans, I'm still wondering about.
Now we have yeah, right. That's the humans. Humans, I'm not quite sure. At least the cats are very straightforward on what they need, on what we need. And so let's see. Now we've got a question from a Kimberly that is about introducing a cat into a household. What do you feel kind of when we look at introducing a cat into a household that already has a cat there? You know, what are some mechanisms that's a very stressful event, very tough event, particularly for the cat that's already there as well as the cat that's coming in. And so what are some things that you think can help that area?
So I actually start before your question with my answer in that, does your cat really want a housemate? If we want more than one cat, adopting them at the same time, and better yet, from the same litter, is the way to go. We'll go all the way back to the beginning of our conversation today about the way cats live in groups, and litter mates live together. And so that is your best chance of things working out. When you have a cat coming from the outside trying to get into the group in general does not want a new cat. So if this is my established territory, it's my instinct to say, you can forget it, you're never coming in here. So there's a statistic that 50% of all new cat introductions fail. So either this is going to go so badly that you go back to the shelter, or you're never coming into my, we call it core area. Like if the living room's my spot, you're never coming there. You get to go live in the guest room by your choice because I scared you and terrorized you. So number one, think really long and hard. Is this really about the cat? And do you really need to be bringing another cat into the house? And that's hard for people to wrap their brain around. One of my favorite veterinarians likes to say, you can have as many cats as you want as long as you only have them one at a time. But so let's say you've made the decision, a new cat is coming. So what do we do? Slow, 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 slow. So your best chance of that working out is if you put the new cat in a confined space with the door shut. And number one, this is for behavior, but number two, also infectious disease. There's a lot of diseases that cats get that you may not see for a day 2, 3, 4, 5 when you bring that new cat into your house, that it could be transmitting to your resident cat, the one that you've had. So keeping them apart it's kind of a quarantine, which is a word we're all talking about right now, in addition to behaviorally keeping them safe. So slowly over time, scent is your very best friend. So they're going to smell each other under the door. You can also take a towel and rub it on the one cat, those pheromones that we talked about on their face and at the base of their tail, and then scent swapping. So then you do that to each cat and give the cat to the other, give the thing to the other. You can switch their beds up and let them really start to smell like each other as best you can. You want to make sure that both cats are having their needs met in their confined space. So places to climb, places to hide, litter box scratching, and hunting, that each one has that. So their stress level is as low as it can be to be able to deal with this new roommate.
Mhm.
And then when the time comes, we want to have it controlled and brief. We talked again about them being high frequency, low intensity interactors. So it's human nature to be like, here you go, you live together now. And that it's not your best chance for success. So what is recommended is you actually put baby gates stacked in the doorway. Mm-hmm. And that you open the door and let the cats see each other for seconds on day one, more on day 2, minutes, until they are seeing each other through a protected space that is really positive. Mm-hmm. And then the day comes when you remove the barrier. And hopefully by then, when you've done it agonizingly slow in a way that is antithetical to what people want, they get along. That's your best shot.
Okay. Great. And so really just giving them time to understand and communicate with those pheromones. We talked about how they don't really communicate with facial expressions and that kind of close-up interaction. And so it's really that distance communication. We give them time to kind of hash it out from the distance before we make them make that decision close up on there. And that becomes a lot less stressful for them. So that's a great way to kind of help introduce from there. And really, in some ways, giving them the separate parts of the house, the separate parts that they can work into. All right, so we've got, let's see, I know, and thank you so much for your time. We'll have one more question that we're gonna go with, and then, oh my goodness, just have so many.
This is great. Send them to me because I'll write blogs about all of them. I love this. This is heaven on earth for me.
Well, we have, there's so many great interested customers and partners with Basepaws, and then of course just people in the community that want cats to improve overall feline health. They're amazing, and we want to make sure that we keep them going. Oh my goodness, I'm almost overwhelmed with questions. Y'all are awesome. I'm so sorry that we cannot answer them all right here. We need another 36 hours to do that, and you guys are great. So let's see. I know I last one. All right, so it's tough. It's a big last one. So the one last thing that we really want to talk about is it kind of rolls back, and this one, why does a cat, and this is an interesting one, when we get on laptops, when we get on papers, why do cats like to get all up in that business? In some ways, we kind of feel like they're not around the entire day, and then as soon as we sit down to try and do the papers and the laptops, then they're just there.
That's such a good question, and I think we got to get another one because I hate to leave it with an I don't know, but I think laptops might have something to do with heat. Cats really like warm things and will choose a warm thing over a other temperature. So laptop sitting, I think, might have something to do with it. Also the sound. A lot of our electronics emit high frequency noise that we can't appreciate that might be attracting to them. I also think, so cats are really interesting in that they want to be in control. Mm-hmm. And when you are working, you are not like, oh, kitty, kitty, kitty. You're distracted, but your physical presence is there. And that's kind of their favorite thing, when they can be with you on their terms, when they make all the rules. There's some really cool stuff you'll see on the internet where you can put a tape box. I haven't tried this, but you can put just tape in a square on the floor, and the cat will go sit in the square. I don't know. I'm super interested to see people's guesses and the research. I don't know. We know that they like confined spaces, but to think that would just be a tape square, I can't make sense of it.
Well, they are.
We think they like cardboard because cardboard helps to reflect the heat and make them warmer, which is one reason why cats love to be in cardboard boxes. But just a sheet of paper, I got nothing.
Attention and sound. Thank you so much for your time. We have so many comments in the questions, or so many questions in the comments. I'm getting my words flipped up now. That in Facebook, we'll be able to go back through, and if we did not answer your question, we'll be able to come back through and leave some replies over the next 48 hours to make sure that you don't get left out. I'm sorry we weren't able to do them live on here. And then also Dr. Bales has, not sure if she realized, she already agreed to do a blog with us about some of these questions. So we'll do a joint blog. We'll do a joint blog with some of our other questions, particularly those in Zoom that aren't as accessible as those out on Facebook.
And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to talk. It's been great talking with you. And I'm so excited of how many people are curious about cat behavior, and that I learn more every day, and I learn from cat parents every day. And it's just the coolest community of inquisitive, empathetic, intelligent, wonderful people. I'm really privileged to be a part of it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. All right, everyone. Well, you all have a great rest of your Sunday, and keep an eye out for that. And then also keep an eye out for our Basepaws blog. We've got a lot of things, a lot of really interesting products and services coming up, including talking more about behaviors as well. So look for some things about something called Coach My Cat. Be exciting. It'll come out again real soon. And then also with Dr. Bales, we've got the Doc and Phoebe's indoor hunting feeder, and that is available on Chewy. It's available on Amazon, Walmart now as well, I believe.
Yeah, I love the independent pet store. So we are available on those big old sites,
Yep.
but please check your independent pet store first. Let's support mom and pop. And it's in a lot of mom and pops, and also a lot of veterinarians are carrying it. So let's support our independence if we can.
All right, so check with your veterinarian, your independent pet store first, and then if not, we'll get it from there. Get it right on the internet like everything else, it seems. But all righty, well, thank you so much again, and thank you everyone for attending, and y'all have a great day.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Thanks again.